But not that day. The court was packed that day, as it should have been. That was the first time the Nevada Supreme Court in its history assembled with a female majority. I believe Judge Yeager was here somewhere earlier. Didn't I see Judge Yeager? There we go. She's like right there, close to being certified. So we're going to get Judge Yeager across the finish line as well, because it's been very impactful to me since then. The idea of judges and noble duty always performed nobly. Every judge in this state, in our judiciary, should appreciate that and think about that every day. And I can tell you, this court will do our level best.
The appointed committee will escort Chief Justice Herndon to the Chief Clerk's rostrum. Everyone please rise. Chief Justice Herndon, we welcome you to the Assembly Chamber and we look forward to your message.
Thank you very much, Speaker, and good evening. Governor Lombardo, Lieutenant Governor Anthony, Speaker Yeager, Majority Leader Cannizzaro, Minority Leader Hafen, Minority Leader Dr. Titus, Attorney General Ford, distinguished members of the Nevada Assembly and the Nevada Senate, constitutional officers, and honored guests. Thank you very much for allowing me to appear before you this evening to talk about something I love dearly, the Nevada Judiciary. I think one of the things in our life that we try to do when we become adults is find an occupation or a profession that we truly feel is meaningful in our life, that we enjoy doing, and hopefully you find a group of people to do it with that you genuinely care about, and it's a pleasure to go to work every day. And I am certainly blessed in that regard as the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court to work with some incredible individuals, which I'd like to acknowledge now. Justice Ron Paragary, Justice Christina Pickering, Justice Lydia Stiglich, Justice Alyssa Kadish, Justice Linda Bell, and Justice Patty Lee. I'm also blessed to have with us tonight the judges of our Court of Appeals, Chief Judge Bonnie Bulla, Judge Michael Gibbons, and Judge Deborah Westbrook. You may not have noticed, 10 years can go by pretty quickly. In January of this year, we celebrated the 10th year of the Court of Appeals being in business for our state. The Court of Appeals does a tremendous job in conjunction with the Supreme Court and has been a much-needed addition to our appellate court system. So thank you all. Yes, please. I would also like to recognize and thank our Clerk of Court, Elizabeth Brown. We hit 90,000 case filings in the Supreme Court recently. Elizabeth tells me she's staying until 100,000. Not that I want attorneys to file more cases, please, but we'll be lucky to keep her around. Our Chief Legal Counsel, Phaedra Kalicki, and the tremendous legal staff that we're privileged to work with every day. Our Court Administrator, Catherine Stocks, our Assistant Court Administrator, John McCormick, our Law Librarian, Ann Walsh-Long, and Jim Wright, the Chief of our Marshals Division. To all of you, and to the hundreds of other people that work within our appellate court system, please know that you have our deep gratitude for all you do to make our court as excellent as it is. Now, I'm going to tell you a little story. Those of you that know me are not surprised, but it does have purpose to what I'm trying to talk about tonight, so if you'll indulge me. But back in 2019, I wanted to take my daughters with me to work one day. It was January. I was still a district court judge. My youngest, Emily, was back in school and was unavailable to come with me. My oldest, Kate, was home from college for winter break, so she came down to my office with me. And later that morning, we walked down to the Supreme Court to hear the first oral arguments that were going to be held that year. If you've ever been to a Supreme Court oral argument, you were probably the only person at the Supreme Court oral argument. It's not must-see TV, okay? Generally, it's the 7 of us and the 3 or 4 attorneys arguing the case. Occasionally, we might have something of more interest to the general public and other people in the legal community. But not that day. The court was packed that day, as it should have been. That was the first time the Nevada Supreme Court in its history assembled with a female majority. And I wanted my daughter not to hear about it or read about it, but to see it and to feel it in the room. And you could feel it in that room, the importance of it, not just for the 4 women on that court, not just for the court itself, not just for the legal community, but for what it meant to our state, a state that embraces progress, and I am proud every day to live in. Well, thank you. Hopefully this next part will be better. Because I'm very excited. And if there's anything redeeming about me that you like, please meet my wife, Carrie, and my daughters, Caitlin and Emily, at some point today. If there's nothing about me that you like, well, I'll wear the responsibility for that. But I'm excited to have them here today with that story as a backdrop, because during Women's History Month, I get to address a female majority Nevada Assembly, a female majority Nevada Senate, as a member of an even larger now female majority Nevada Supreme Court, and as the representative of a female majority Court of Appeals, a female majority statewide District Court Bench of Judges, and a female majority statewide Justice Court Bench of Judges, which from where I stand is awesome. It is awesome. And again, it's a testament to the people of this state. During Women's History Month, we often focus, maybe too solely, on those that came before, who are incredibly important. Women that carved paths that didn't exist and broke down barriers that were incredibly difficult to make it easier for you all in this generation of women. But everybody in this room knows that the past becomes meaningless and progress stops if you just take the torch. You can't just take the torch. You have to move it forward. And every woman in this room, judges, legislators, public alike, you have done that, and I congratulate you on everything you've achieved individually, within your organizations, and as public servants in this state. And more than that, I thank you, because on behalf of my daughters and all the other young women of this state, many of whose names you'll never even know, they'll know you. They'll know what you did, and they will achieve greatness because of you, and they'll take the torch, and they'll move it forward, and Nevada continues to progress and be a beacon for states across the country. Thank you. I've been a member of the legal community of Nevada for almost 35 years now. I had a lot of hair when I got started. And I've been a judge for over 20 years, and I've had, during that time period, the opportunity to appear in front of and work alongside tremendous judges, people that I consider mentors and very influential in my life. So it is deeply humbling to be here today as a representative of our judiciary. 7 Supreme Court justices, 3 Court of Appeals judges, 90 District Court judges, 68 justices of the peace, 32 municipal court judges, and over 2,000 people that work in our court systems around the state every day with one goal in mind that we're united on: provide justice to Nevada's citizens, make sure people are heard, that legal standards are met, and that people's issues and cases are decided fairly and impartially and timely. And I'm very proud of the fact that we get to do that in conjunction with you, the Nevada legislature. I would be remiss if I did not thank you again for everything you did for the judiciary during the last legislative session. Regardless of the diversity of our backgrounds, philosophies, approaches, missions of our branches, it didn't matter. We collaborated together in the interest of creating the best justice system we could in this state. And I think we did a pretty good job. Your passage of SB 58, the Judicial Reform Bill, was a landmark achievement. It affirmed, if you will, the independence of our two branches while maintaining the very vital checks and balances necessary to a good functioning democracy. You eliminated administrative assessment revenue as a source of our funding, which was huge. You made sure that justice in Nevada moving forward would be beyond reproach. And SB 58 provided sustainable funding for us and the ability to manage ourselves in ways that we never had been able to before. And we are incredibly grateful for that. You took our non-judicial personnel budget and put it into one account and codified it to be like that of the office of governor, which was a critical shift in our ability to retain the very talented and tremendous individuals that we work with every day, and to attract equally talented and tremendous individuals on the what is now, happily, a very rare occasion that we need to open up a position. But we are incredibly grateful to you all, to the Governor's Office of Finance, to the staff of the Legislative Counsel Bureau, for working with our AOC members to streamline those budget accounts and give us the operational flexibility to be able to continue to innovate and be excellent. So thank you, and we look forward to collaborating with you as we move forward into the future as well. I would also like to point out that I think we've at least tried to be very good stewards of the appropriations granted to us by the legislature. Last session in particular, there were a couple of projects that we had discussed needing funding for, and you granted that to us. Creating an AOC facility in Las Vegas to partner with our appellate court building and the staff down in Southern Nevada, as well as a build-out of our Carson City Law Library facilities to create training facilities so that we could bring in judges from around the state for Nevada-specific training. I'm happy to tell you both of those projects were completed on time and in budget. We can be trusted. So to talk about now some of the achievements that we've had, the remarkable progress that we've made over the last couple of years in terms of innovation, in terms of access to justice issues, judicial education issues. I want to comment about our specialty courts and a number of other things. But I want to lead with this because it's tied into what you did for us in the last legislative session. And I found this out last night, that the Nevada Supreme Court is going to be awarded one of the spring 2025 top workplace designations by Intergage. Intergage, for those of you that don't know, is a platform that does workplace surveys for thousands and thousands of entities, and collates all that data. And based upon the positive feedback from within organizations, they designate certain organizations as top workplaces. We're not only a top workplace, we're a top workplace in every category they grade. So again, thank you very much for creating such a wonderful place for the people in the appellate court system to work. So let's talk about some of those achievements. Statewide Self-Help Center. We created a statewide self-help center that utilizes guided interviews to help mainly pro se litigants of limited financial resources create legally sufficient pleading forms that they can use in representing themselves. Currently, that system can translate those forms for them into 4 languages, and we're looking to expand that. But right now it's Spanish, Mandarin, Vietnamese, and Tagalog. We did a soft launch of that program in March of last year and did a more broad advertisement of it beginning in September. Since that time, we've done 3,000 guided interviews with Nevada citizens. And right now, we are doing about 300 eligibility reviews out of those interviews every month, and we're doing 350 completed pleading packets every month. That's 350 people that now have, in an unknown and sometimes daunting forum, the ability to take legally sufficient documents to court and get their issues in front of a judge to be heard and decided so they can go on with their lives. I think that's tremendous. Our Guardianship Investigations Office. As you know, that office protects Nevada's most vulnerable citizens. Last year, we audited estates worth $24.5 million. Troublingly, in a third of those, $8.1 million, that office identified a risk of loss. The good news is, because of the office's efforts, the courts can step in earlier to protect those assets and prevent loss. And I'm very proud of the fact that we will be the 3rd judiciary in the country to implement and deploy a guardianship reporting portal. And we will be the first in the country that has a portal that is designed to allow financial institutions to import directly financial information, which gets information in the hands of the courts very quickly so that they can identify potential risk of loss, protect assets, and protect people. Recently, the court hosted a Legal Deserts Summit, and we were very grateful to Assemblymember Considine and the State Bar for participating in that event. And the idea of that was to look at the areas around our state, quite frankly, where there are no attorneys or very few attorneys, enough attorneys, to handle the legal issues that those communities have. The summit was great in terms of being able to roundtable issues, and we're very hopeful moving forward that we'll be able to provide more and more answers to help out in those areas. One of those comes from the work that we did previously and is ongoing with our Virtual Advocacy Commission. What we learned during COVID, all of us learned, we could do remote hearings, we could do them efficiently and effectively, and in many cases, preferably to in-court appearances by both attorneys and the public. From the criminal law side of things, oftentimes members of the public that don't have tremendous financial resources struggle to make it to court, to pay for transportation, to miss work, lose jobs. And creating presumptive hearings that would be done in person has been an incredible benefit. That commission created its work, or finished up its work. In late 2023, we put the guidelines into place for last year, and in 2 or 3 months or so, I'm guessing, we're going to bring people back to invite public comment to see how it's been working in the various courts and what, if anything, we need to tweak moving forward. But I'm very proud of that commission's work. Additionally, last year, we created a pilot program for informal family court trials. That's also designed to pro se litigants, of which there are a tremendous amount in the family court system. And that program is designed to create an ease of self-representation for those individuals. Again, so it's not such a daunting environment for them to appear in and get their issues heard by a judge. It also somewhat relaxes the rules of evidence for them to get evidence that they think is relevant to their case before the judge, while we trust the judge to be able to decide what it is that's something that they can utilize in their decision making. So it gets cases to the judge quicker, it gets litigants in front of the judge quicker, it gets resolution of their issues quicker. And we're very proud of this, and I look forward to the results we'll get from that pilot project to figure out how we can continue that on into the future. Additionally, a couple of years ago, you may recall, we started a water law commission, headed by my friend Justice Perigary. The idea of that, and what it ultimately did, was created something we affectionately refer to as Water Court. Water Court was designed to designate and certify a judge in every judicial district in the state to be able to handle the very complex issues in water law cases, and to do so in a consistent way. These cases pop up all over the state with our state engineer, and we wanted consistency on how they're being handled and how we develop the law in that area. I'm very pleased to tell you that as of today, we have 13 district court judges who are certified as water law judges. I believe Judge Yeager was here somewhere earlier. Didn't I see Judge Yeager? There we go. She's like right there, close to being certified. So we're going to get Judge Yeager across the finish line as well. But we've also asked for an appropriation. Yes. We've also asked for an appropriation from the legislature this session that would allow us to join the Western States Water Law Consortium through the National Judicial College so that we can continue our proactive efforts to address this critical issue in our state and within our region. Judicial education. In December of 2024, we held our first new judge academy with 18 limited jurisdiction judges from around the state. As you all know, in a lot of areas of our state, limited jurisdictions judges aren't attorneys. So we thought it was critical to get these people together, and we assembled them in Las Vegas with our AOC facilities, and we created an education curriculum and an everyday in-person court curriculum with sitting judges. I think we gave these individuals an incredible amount of practical knowledge to utilize when they started on the bench, but maybe more importantly, We created mentorships and networking opportunities for them to meet and engage with other judges. And a lot of our jurisdiction, the judge is the only judge. And as judges, we rely on each other. We can't just go solicit information anywhere we want to. So creating those opportunities for them to develop relationships with people they could rely on was tremendous. As you probably know within our budget, we're also requesting an expenditure for a continuous learning plan that would allow us to continue our judicial education efforts. I believe our next new judge academy would be scheduled for December of 2026, following the election that involves all 90 district court judge seats in the state. We anticipate that there'll probably be at least a handful of new judges at that time, and we think this training program would be incredibly valuable to them as well. And we'd also like to return court employee training. We pared that back during the recession. And I realize not all court employees are state employees, and we're generally talking about the state judiciary and state courts right now. But whether you're a municipal, county, or state court employee, you have the same function. And those employees are the front line of case management and ensuring the accurate record in the courts in this state. And that's critically important. So we want to provide training to them that assists them in assisting their judges to help us maintain neutrality and procedural integrity within those court systems. So we appreciate any consideration that you all can give us in regard to that. My favorite topic, I get to talk about specialty courts. I'll pick on Judge Yeager again and say I know Judge Yeager loves specialty courts as well. But why do we love specialty courts? Nevada has long been a national leader in problem-solving courts. Whether it's our drug court, mental health courts, DUI court, veterans court, gambling courts, we love specialty courts because in the criminal law arena, there aren't a lot of things that you can look at and say, if I do this every time, this person will be successful and they'll never come back to the criminal justice system. If we knew that magic formula, we would do it, every time. But we know it in specialty courts because specialty courts provide specific team-oriented training for people to rebuild their lives and reintegrate into their communities and not be repeat customers of the justice system. Last year in Nevada, 1,320 people graduated from our specialty court programs. That number, yes. That number in and of itself is significant. But what the statistics tell us about that, and we usually look at 3 years post-graduation, what the statistics tell us is that 90% of those people will not be back in the criminal justice system. And just as importantly, for people that enter those programs but don't graduate, but nonetheless spend significant time there, they also develop the tools to rebuild their lives and don't come back into the criminal justice system as high as 70 to 80% sometimes. That's tremendous. But probably most importantly in my mind, every trial court judge, every limited jurisdiction judge can tell you of the heartache of dealing with cases with pregnant mothers suffering through drug and alcohol addiction. You worry not just about the case and the defendant, you worry about the unborn child being born with the physical, mental, and behavioral deficits that come from being exposed to drug or alcohol use by the pregnant mother. In a specialty court program, if one baby can be born drug-free, that has that increased chance of success in life, one of our citizens, that's worth every penny we spend on specialty courts. Last year, 36 babies were born drug-free to participants in our specialty court programs. 36, 3 children every month. Three children every month with that increased risk of success. I know that the legislature understands the value of specialty courts. You've always been very good. And so I thank you for that. And I ask for your consideration this session in regard to our request for the specialty courts. They are tremendous, and they work so well for our citizens. Now, I can't, sadly, talk about the state of our judiciary without mentioning judicial safety. Everybody in this room, I'm sure, is aware of what happened in Las Vegas early last year when one of our judges, Mary Kay Holthus, good judge, working hard, doing her job, sentences a gentleman who becomes displeased, rushes the bench, jumps over the bench, and begins to physically assault the judge before her law clerk and court marshals could intervene. It was incredibly scary. Unpredictable? I think most people would say yes. On the other hand, in our society, people are increasingly prone to violence on things and issues and in ways that we didn't deal with in the past, including threats and conduct directed at the judiciary. We did a survey recently, which I'll mention a little further in a moment. The judicial participants in that survey, this was the pressing issue. I went to the Conference of Chief Justices with all the other Chief Justices around the country in February. This was the main presentation topic, including testimonials from judges who had been harassed, stalked, physically assaulted, and shot by people whose cases they were presiding over. It's a problem. We started a Judicial Security Commission headed by Justice Bell that is seeking proactively to gather information and centralize it from around the state to understand more about the depth and breadth of this problem. But we don't need that to know it's a problem. And it's one of the reasons we've requested an enhancement this session to add 2 marshal positions to our staff, 1 north and south, to provide protection, not just to us, but to everybody that comes in and uses our buildings, the appellate court buildings around the state. And again, we appreciate your consideration in that regard. Looking ahead, 2025 will be the end of our current strategic plan. And we're excited to continue checking off boxes of the things that we're accomplishing, while we also put together our 26-28 strategic plan, which should be released later this year. And that's from where the survey came from. There was about 300 participants in that with 75 focus group members. And we're collating and going through that data to gain good insights into what we can do to be very forward-thinking in our next strategic plan. But as we look to the next biennium, we know we have a lot of work to do. And we're grateful for the ARPA funds we got that allowed us to start some transformative projects. But we're going to need your help and support to continue those moving forward, to complete them and maintain them. That includes our statewide e-filing system. It's been deployed in 9 courts, and we're working to expand that. We're trying to develop a modernized, cloud-based case management system that would provide tremendous flexibility to our court systems around the state and alleviate the very real burden that local courts have in not having the resources for the type of IT infrastructure needed. We're also seeking to create a central data repository around the state for court information that would allow not only for a more robust set of data for judges to make better decisions, but it would allow for better policy development too, surrounding the judicial branch and the state's justice system. So we appreciate in advance your consideration for those matters. The successes and achievements that we've made that I've discussed with you briefly this evening, or maybe not so briefly, I'm sorry, and the ambitions we have for the future, they're not just held by the judicial branch, right? Whether it's the legislative branch, the governor and the executive branch, or the judicial branch, we're all united in one thing: do our very level best on behalf of the people of this state to improve their lives and improve their government and improve the things that they have access to and need. And there is so much, I know you'll join me in knowing that there is so much honor, not just in being a public servant, but being a public servant in this state, in the state of Nevada. With regard to the judiciary, in the last 2.5 months, I've had occasion to travel to a lot of places. I've done more driving and flying on Southwest than I care to. But I've met a lot of judges that I didn't know before from a lot of areas. We have really good judges in this state, good people that embrace the idea of what being a judge is. That being said, I have always been the first to admit that sometimes the judiciary is its own worst enemy. Not every judge is built the same. Not every Supreme Court is built the same. But what I can tell you about the Nevada Supreme Court, every person on this court that runs the state judiciary understands the privilege of what it means to be a judge. I'm going to tell you one more quick story. 151 years ago, a gentleman wrote a letter about his law partner. And in that letter, I don't want to misquote this, he wrote, "He was a kind, tender, and sympathetic man, feeling deeply in the presence of pain, suffering, wrong, or oppression in any shape. He was the very essence and substance of truth. He was just to men. He loved the right, the good and true with all his soul. I've never known so true a man, so just a one, so good a one, so incorrupted and incorruptible a one. His work was his grandest and highest religion. Noble duty, nobly done. It's those last 4 words that have always stuck with me. Those words were written about Abraham Lincoln. And they were written by his last law partner, a gentleman that worked with him for 16 years before Lincoln became president and was his friend until Lincoln was assassinated. That gentleman's name was William Herndon. He was my 8th cousin, once removed. I came upon this letter about 8 or 9 years ago, and Lord knows I wish I would have found it sooner, because it's been very impactful to me since then. The idea of judges and noble duty always performed nobly. Every judge in this state, in our judiciary, should appreciate that and think about that every day. And I can tell you, this court will do our level best to make sure we continue to keep that fresh in the minds of Nevada's judiciary moving forward. So thank you. Almost done. I just wanted to say, we have a reception in the Supreme Court Rotunda, and I'm hopeful that you can all join us. But before I step away, please know, on behalf of me and my family and the entirety of Nevada's judiciary, how grateful we are for each of you, the governor and the Nevada legislature. We know, right, as public servants as well, the tremendous commitment it takes to do these jobs. Many of us are walking around the halls of the legislature during the session. We see you. We see your efforts. We see the deliberation. We know how many people are out there asking enormous things of you, and we greatly appreciate you. So God bless you and your families. Thank you again for having me this evening to speak on behalf of the Nevada judiciary. Don't stand up again. It's okay.
Senator Orenshall.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the Senate and Assembly in joint session extend a vote of thanks to Chief Justice Douglas W. Herndon for his timely, able, and constructive message.
Assemblymember Dahlia.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I second the motion.
You've all heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. The appointed committee will escort Chief Justice Douglas W. Herndon to the bar of the Assembly.